Welcome to Ethiopia Today.
French keen to remain relevant partner of Ethiopia. France wants to remain a relevant partner of Ethiopia, according to Ambassador Remy Merchok's INA reports, briefing journalists in connection with the 125th year diplomatic relations between Ethiopia and France. The ambassador said France has a range of projects in Ethiopia, and its ambition is to remain a relevant partner of the country. We were not in the past a dominant partner, and we still are not a dominant partner. But we still are trying to do our very best to remain a relevant partner, he added. According to him, France is very active in the fields of education, transportation, energy and heritage conservation, among others. We still have an ambition to scale up our relation in all the fields mentioned. So we have projects in the field of education. We also have development projects. We will host later this month a delegation of French companies in search of opportunities in the country. And we have the intention to support potential investors in the strategy of import substitution. Some 58 French companies, including 19 international firms, are working in Ethiopia, Ambassador Merchok noted. The most two recent investments given priority by the Ethiopian government are import substitution and investment in agro-business. With regards to import substitution, one of the leading maltsters in the world, Bortmalt Ethiopia plc, is engaged in agro-industrial sector and malting barley supply chain development in Ethiopia. Also, France's top private cereal collector, the Soufflet Group, is a major player in supplying inputs to farmers cultivating various field crops and vineyard through Soufflet Malt Ethiopia SC. We also have important bilateral trade relation with a total amount of 470 million euro. So we import textile and coffee from Ethiopia, and we export Airbus planes for Ethiopian Airlines, he said. The ambassador further noted that France continues to be partner in modernizing Ethiopia and has tried to be a strong supporter of the reform initiated in the field of economy. Commenting on the planned national dialogue in Ethiopia, Ambassador Merchok said it is very much a welcome initiative, and we are available for the Ethiopian authorities to support the dialogue in any possible way. Relations between Ethiopia and France began on March 20th, 1887, when Léonce Lagarde signed with Menelik II a friendship treaty recognizing the independence of Ethiopia, which marked the beginning of a strong friendship embodied in several domains. Kenya urges world to lift sanctions against Zimbabwe. Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta on Wednesday called on the international community to lift sanctions against Zimbabwe, saying the restrictions were hurting the southern African nation. Kenyatta, who spoke in the Kenyan capital Nairobi when he hosted visiting Zimbabwean President Emmerson Mnangagwa, termed the sanctions as illegal and assured Harare of Nairobi's continued advocacy to ensure that the restrictions are lifted. We have continued to emphasize our strong determination to continue with our support of Zimbabwe against the illegal sanctions that have been imposed on that country and continue to cause undue problems, issues, and trouble for the people of Zimbabwe. And this we consider to be unfair, he said during a joint briefing with Mnangagwa. Kenyatta said these hardships are artificially created and reiterated his call on the international community to remove these illegal economic sanctions which were imposed in 2003 by Western nations. We consider this to be unfair because these hardships are artificially created, and we continue to call on the international community to remove these illegal sanctions, he said. Mnangagwa, who is on a 3-day visit to Kenya to shore up bilateral relations between the two countries, lauded Kenyatta for his support and call for the removal of sanctions placed upon his country, terming the restrictions as unilateral. I thank Kenya for the support of solidarity for Zimbabwe and the call for the unconditional removal of unilateral sanctions that were imposed on Zimbabwe by some Western countries, he said. Africa. Experts forecast big boost in oil revenue for some African economies. While soaring oil prices hit consumers worldwide, their misfortune means a fortune for others. There will certainly be a significant boost in government revenue for some oil-producing African countries, as oil prices hit their highest level since 2008 after the U.S. bans imports of Russian oil, the African Energy Chamber tells VOA. Nigeria, Angola, Libya, South Sudan, Gabon, the Congo, and Ghana are going to see a significant boost in government revenue, said Werner Ayukegba, senior vice president at Johannesburg-based African Energy Chamber. However, he said that despite the economic breather for these African economies, most of the countries on the continent are heavily dependent on imports of refined products and will see their expenditures balloon. Countries like South Africa, who are not producers but major economies who import crude oil to be able to refine for their industries, countries are going to see an increase in their import bills, he said. Skyrocketing crude oil prices and the rising cost of living on the continent also threaten to increase inflation, says Bala Zaka, a petroleum engineer based in Lagos, Nigeria. In Nigeria today, diesel has been deregulated. A liter of diesel goes for 450 Nigerian naira, or $1.08, and this is where you will appreciate the pains that Nigerians are going through, Zaka said. The oil analyst was unhappy that Africa's most populous nation of 200 million people relies on imported refined products despite having the capacity to locally refine oil for domestic use like gas, diesel, and kerosene. Nigeria is the main oil producer in Africa and the largest crude oil exporter on the continent. According to data from Statista in 2020, Nigeria led the exports of crude oil from Africa. Overall, those exports amounted to about 5.4 million barrels per day in that year. Meanwhile, the African Energy Chamber's Ayukegba said that because of the uptick in oil prices globally, most African nations are likely to see more exploration for new oil and gas sources. Exploration spend is going to lead to much more oil and gas activities off the coast of Africa, the Gulf of Guinea for instance, and also in onshore locations, he told VOA. There's drilling going on in places like Namibia at the moment where Total and Shell have come up with significant discoveries, he added. Yale Global Health researchers evaluate Ethiopia Primary Healthcare Transformation Initiative. Researchers at the Yale School of Public Health recently evaluated a multi-year health policy and management initiative they launched in Ethiopia, identifying novel ways to enhance global primary care systems. Erica Linender, director of Yale's Global Health Leadership Initiative, currently leads the Primary Healthcare Transformation Initiative, which is a multi-year effort to create a culture of performance management and accountability in Ethiopia's district health offices, as Yale Daily News report shows. In a recent paper published in the International Journal of Health Policy and Management, Linender and her team of researchers examined the effects of zonal-level management practices in the Ethiopian healthcare systems. The paper, a product of 10 years of collaboration with the administrative health systems in Ethiopia, demonstrated that investment in zonal-level management practices is associated with significant improvements in lower-level management and performance in primary care systems. The type of management we are focusing on is community and patient-centered, Linender said. Do you meet regularly with your staff to evaluate performance based on data? Do you ask your community what is and isn't working? Do you coordinate with other sectors that play a role in health determinants? The paper's focus demonstrated the effects that prioritization of management and the strengthening of systems can have on the Ethiopian healthcare system. The Primary Healthcare Transformation Initiative provided professionals with a master's level education on health management, created the position of hospital CEO, and shifted health management responsibilities from clinicians to professional managers. According to Linender, this came at a time when Ethiopia had rapidly built its primary care program, so it was critical that proper management systems were put in place. I wouldn't say that clinicians aren't the best people to step into managerial roles, Mayor Desai SPH 9497 Drachma, associate professor of epidemiology and author of the paper, wrote to the news. Healthcare management and leadership are not taught in medical and nursing schools, so why would we just expect a doctor or a nurse to automatically be an excellent manager? Taking clinicians out of these managerial roles proved to not only improve primary care management, but also ensured that clinicians could continue their main roles as care providers. When you're in a context where your healthcare resources are so limited, you don't want to take your clinicians out of providing care and put them in these managerial roles, Linender explained. Efforts by the Primary Healthcare Transformation Initiative resulted in improved standards of management practices across 3 levels: zonal, district, and health facility. For care providers, improving management led to numerous benefits such as increased job satisfaction, greater commitment to the organization, and better stewardship of limited resources, Desai said. For patients, improved healthcare system management resulted in better clinical outcomes. When management works well, it's invisible, Linender explained. If you're a patient and you're walking into a health center that's well managed, it just feels good. It's clean, they have the supplies that are needed, the clinical teams work together, there's a medical record that they can access and use. It just makes clinical care better for the patient. Russia-Ukraine conflict has champagne corks quietly popping in Pentagon. The military conflict between Russia and Ukraine has the champagne corks quietly popping in the Pentagon, on K Street, in the defense industry, and throughout the halls of Congress, wrote Franklin C. Spinney, a former military analyst for the Pentagon, in a recent commentary. Taxpayers are going to be paying for their party for a long time, Spinney wrote in the article entitled How the Narcotic of Defense Spending Undermines a Sensible Grand Strategy, published on Wednesday in his blog post. It is no accident that the United States is on the cusp of the Second Cold War, he said. Time magazine called Spinney a Pentagon maverick on a cover in 1983. Spinney served as an analyst in the Pentagon's Office of Program Analysis and Evaluation, and in this capacity he exposed and decried the overinflated military spending and appeared as a witness in many congressional hearings. Future historians may well view the last 30 years as a case study in the institutional survival of the American military-industrial congressional complex together with its supporting blob now saturating the media, think tanks, academia, and the intelligence community, Spinney wrote. Perhaps these future historians will come also to view the global war on terror as the bridging operation that greased the transition to Cold War II by keeping defense budgets at Cold War levels after Cold War I ended, he wrote. No one wants war, but rising tension and the politics of fear and their bedfellow. Demonization had to be magnified to justify the huge bow wave of defense spending looming in the budgetary offing, he added. Spinney pointed out, as it gradually sank in, that the First Cold War had indeed ended when the Soviet threat evaporated in 1991. The titans in the defense industry understood their comfortable market for new high-tech, high-cost weapons could dry up. So, they went on a Pentagon-subsidized consolidation binge to gobble up access to what threatened to be a stagnating market, Spinney said. He further said that a lobbying operation named the Committee to Expand NATO emerged in the early 1990s and was headed by a vice president of Lockheed Martin, an American arms corporation. These forces shaped the hopes and dreams underpinning the powerful American impulse to expand NATO despite promises to the contrary made by leaders in the United States, Germany, France, and the United Kingdom, Spinney said. Spinney also argued that the Pentagon's strategy of maximizing its budget has created a growing dependency on defense spending in the American political economy. He quoted George Kennan, who fathered the dominant U.S. policy of containment for the Cold War, as saying, "Were the Soviet Union to sink tomorrow under the waters of the ocean, the American military-industrial complex would have to remain substantially unchanged until some other adversary could be invented. Anything else would be an unacceptable shock to the American economy." Lawrence Wilkerson, former Chief of Staff to U.S. Secretary of State Colin Powell, told Xinhua via email that Spinney has produced a concise description of what is driving U.S. defense budget policy and how it relates to the recent military operation of Russia. Having observed the formation of defense spending up close and personal for 4 decades, I can only say chucks. Franklin C. Spinney's arguments describe reality as well as I have seen in a very long time. But in only a few words, Wilkerson said, 5 presidents and their national security apparatchiks have played a key role by pushing NATO expansion, which has led to the tragic outbreak of the current armed conflict, he added. Wilkerson said that facing the Russia-Ukraine conflict, the voices of the Western media exhibit a uniformity of insanity, but an insanity that makes some people a great deal of money.
Attention business owners. Let me ask you something. What if I told you that your website have its own chat support staff for 24/7 and interact with your site visitors and get their questions answered? Or help you generate more sales on many websites as you wish for small one-time fee? And what if I told you that you can do all these without hiring staff, virtual agents, and sophisticated platforms? Do you want to know more about this cutting-edge software? Click the link on the description section below.
Thanks for staying with us. If you enjoyed our presentation, give us a like and share to your social contacts. And also don't forget to subscribe and tap on the notification bell if this is your first time. Please also check on our collection of favorites on the description section below. See you on our next video. Many thanks.